For 7 endless days, their house felt like a grave, silent, cold, and broken. Their 10-year-old son, Ethan, had vanished without a single trace. His parents stopped sleeping. Hope was slipping away like sand between their fingers. But on the 8th night, something tapped on their living room window. A German shepherd. Alone, dirty, staring at them with strange, urgent eyes. Not barking, not growling, just tapping, slow, steady, deliberate. They tried to ignore him. They tried to chase him away, but he kept returning. Every night at the exact same time, tap. Tap, always. The same window, always the same pleading stare, until one night. He arrived carrying something in his mouth, a small object that made their hearts stop cold. It belonged to Ethan. And when they finally followed the dog, what he revealed in the woods changed everything. Before we start, make sure to hit like, share, and subscribe. And really, I'm curious, where are you watching from? Drop your country name in the comments. I love seeing how far our stories travel. The house felt heavier with every hour that passed. A week had gone by since their 10-year-old son, Ethan, disappeared. Yet the silence inside the living room still felt unreal, too sharp, too cold, too wrong. His favorite blanket remained draped over the sofa, untouched, as if he'd come running down any second. But he didn't, and each passing day dug the wound deeper into his parents' hearts. Sarah sat on the couch, hands clasped, staring blankly at the wall. Her husband, Michael, stood near the window, lost in thought, replaying the police updates in his mind, updates that felt more like dead ends. And then it happened. A sharp, sudden tapping hit the window, cutting through the quiet like a knife. Both parents jolted in shock. Michael hurried forward, pushing aside the curtain. A German shepherd stood outside, pressing his paws against the glass, staring straight at them. His eyes were wide, intense, almost pleading. His breath fogged the window. His tail wasn't wagging. His body was tense, alert, purposeful. The dog tapped again, louder this time. Tap, tap, tap. Sarah stood up slowly, fear creeping down her spine. Is he trying to come inside? She whispered. Michael shook his head, mesmerized. No, he's trying to get our attention. The dog barked once, a sharp, urgent sound, then resumed tapping, almost rhythmically, as if demanding they follow him. His ears were up, his chest heaving, his entire body vibrating with desperation. But the couple didn't move. They didn't understand him, and after a tense moment, the German shepherd stopped tapping, stepped back, gave one last long look through the window, and quietly walked away into the fading light. Michael and Sarah stared after him, confused. They didn't know it yet, but that moment was the beginning. Tomorrow, at the exact same time, the dog would return. The next evening arrived with the same quiet dread that had settled over the house all week. Michael sat at the table, pretending to eat, though his mind was spinning, replaying the image of the strange German shepherd tapping on their window. They told themselves it was nothing, just a random dog. Maybe hungry, maybe lost, but deep down, neither of them quite believed that. Do you think he'll come back? She asked softly, not sure if she wanted the answer to be yes or no. Michael didn't respond. He simply glanced toward the living room window, waiting. And then, right on cue, tap, tap. Sarah gasped. Michael pushed back his chair so fast it scraped the floor. The German shepherd was back. Same window. Same time. Same intense stare. Only this time he wasn't just tapping. He was pacing, shifting his weight anxiously, glancing from the window to the tree line outside, then back to them. His movements were sharp, purposeful. Not the behavior of a lost dog, but of one trying to communicate. Michael approached slowly, kneeling by the window. What do you want? He whispered. The dog stopped pacing. His ears perked. His eyes locked on Michael like he understood every word. Then he whined high-pitched, urgent, and tapped rapidly. Sarah joined him, her hand trembling as she placed it on the glass. The shepherd pressed his paw exactly where her hand rested, his claws clicking softly. His breathing was heavy, almost distressed, and there, in his eyes, she saw something that made her blood run cold. Fear. Real fear. The dog turned abruptly and ran a few steps toward the woods, then spun back. Barking urgently, he wanted them to follow. Sarah's heart pounded. Michael, this isn't random. He's trying to show us something. Michael swallowed hard. Staring at the shadowed forest beyond their yard, the dog barked again. Desperate, something was out there. Something he needed them to see. The next day arrived heavier than the last. She kept replaying the dog's frantic pacing, his terrified eyes, the way he kept looking toward the woods as if something or someone was still out there. As dusk painted the sky in fading gold, they found themselves sitting together on the couch. Not talking, just waiting. Neither wanted to admit it, but both were hoping the dog would come back, and when the clock struck the exact minute he'd appeared before Sarah jumped. Michael exhaled shakily. He's back, she whispered, but this time. The German shepherd looked different. He wasn't pacing, he wasn't whining. He stood perfectly still, tail low, ears pinned, body tense as if what he carried was too serious for any distraction. Michael approached the window slowly. That's when he saw it. Hanging from the dog's mouth was a small muddy piece of fabric. Blue fabric. Sarah's heart stopped. Michael, she choked, covering her mouth. Is that? Michael pressed his forehead to the glass, squinting. His hands trembled. It can't be. But it was. The German shepherd stepped closer, lifting the scrap gently, placing it directly against the window. The color was unmistakable. Little stitched patch in the corner, hand sewn by. Sarah confirmed it. It was a torn piece of Ethan's jacket. Sarah collapsed to her knees, sobbing. Michael felt his world tilt. The jacket Ethan wore the day he vanished, the jacket police said showed no leads, was right in front of them. The dog let out a soft, mournful whine, his eyes filled with urgency and pain, as if begging them to understand. Then, without warning, he turned sharply toward the woods and barked once, sharply, commanding lie. Follow me. The message was clear. Sarah grabbed Michael's arm. He knows where our son is, she whispered through tears. Michael nodded, his voice breaking. For the first time, we have a real sign. The dog barked again, louder. And this time they listened. Michael didn't even realize he had stepped outside until the cold evening air hit his face. Sarah followed closely behind him, clutching the torn piece of Ethan's jacket like it was the last thread holding her together. The German shepherd stood at the edge of their yard, tail stiff, head low, glancing back at them every few seconds, checking, urging, insisting they keep up. For the first time, the dog wasn't tapping on the window. He was leading. Michael felt his pulse pounding as he picked up his pace. Wait, slow down, he called, though the dog seemed to understand their limits. He'd move ahead a few feet, stop, look back, then continue, never too far, never too fast. Sarah's breath shivered in her chest. He's taking us somewhere. I can feel it. The dog reached the tree line behind their house and paused, ears rotating, listening for something unseen. The dog stepped inside the forest, then turned and barked once, short, urgent, unmistakable. Come. Michael hesitated at the edge. Sarah, this could be dangerous. She wiped her tears, eyes fierce. Our son is out there. If this dog knows where, I'm not staying behind. That was all the convincing he needed. Together they stepped into the woods. The forest was silent, eerily so. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Leaves crunched softly under their feet as they followed the dog's determined path. Every so often, he'd stop, sniff the ground, then look back at them with an expression that felt almost human, full of urgency and Fear? They had walked nearly 10 minutes when the dog suddenly froze. His ears shot up. His muscles tightened. He stared into the darkness ahead. Sarah grabbed Michael's arm. What is it? What does he see? The shepherd took a cautious step forward, then shook his head sharply and retreated a few steps, almost pushing them away from the deeper shadows. He refused to go further. Michael's stomach twisted. If the dog, this brave, determined dog, wouldn't enter. What was hiding in those woods? The forest from the night before replayed in his mind on a loop. The darkness, the dog freezing, refusing to go deeper. It wasn't just fear. It was warning. Something in those woods wasn't right. Sarah sat at the kitchen table, Ethan's torn jacket piece beside her, staring at it like it might speak. Her eyes were red from crying, but there was something new in them now. Purpose. He'll come again, she whispered. Michael didn't need to ask who she meant. All day, they kept looking toward the window, waiting, wondering, hoping. The minutes crawled by painfully slow. Sarah dropped her mug. Michael rushed to the window. The German shepherd was back, but tonight, his routine was different. He didn't wait. He didn't pace. He didn't tap more than once. He simply turned and walked away, pausing only long enough to make sure they were following. He wants us to continue, Sarah said, grabbing her jacket. Michael nodded. He's trying to guide us. Slowly, they stepped outside, and the dog trotted ahead, leading them back toward the woods. But when they reached the same point as last night, he once again stopped. He refused to go deeper. Instead, he sniffed a patch of leaves intensely, then looked at them expectantly. Michael knelt, brushing aside the leaves. A footprint. Small. Child. Sized. Sarah, single quotes, S voice. Ethan. But before they could react further, the shepherd nudged the footprint gently, then backed away again, refusing the deeper path. He shows us a little, then stops, Michael whispered. Why? The dog circled them anxiously, glancing between the forest shadows and the direction of home. Sarah drew in a shaky breath. He's protecting us. He wants us to see what's safe, one step at a time. Michael looked into the dense trees, whatever lay deeper. Even the dog feared, and that meant one thing. Ethan hadn't vanished randomly. Something else was out there. The next morning, Sarah and Michael sat in the small conference room of the police station. The torn jacket piece folded carefully in Sarah's hands like a sacred relic. Detective Harris, the lead investigator, leaned back in his chair with a tired sigh. He had heard their story, every detail about the German shepherd tapping on their window, leading them to the woods, revealing the small footprint, but the look on his face said it all. He didn't believe them. Dog bringing you a piece of Ethan's jacket? Harris asked slowly, rubbing his temples. And returning every evening at the same time? It sounds unusual. Sarah stiffened. Unusual doesn't mean impossible. He showed us where Ethan walked. He's trying to help. Michael leaned forward. Look, maybe you think we're desperate or imagining things, but that dog knew exactly where to take us. He wouldn't go deeper because something scared him. Detective Harris exchanged a glance with another officer, one that made Michael's jaw tighten. They thought the parents were overwhelmed, emotional, grasping at anything. Finally, Harris sighed. We'll send a patrol to check the woods again. But animals act strangely all the time. It doesn't mean he's trying to communicate. Sarah's voice trembled, but her eyes were sharp. Then explain why he brings us something new each night. Why he leads us to the same spot. Why he shows us things the search teams missed. Harris didn't answer. Moments later, the couple walked out of the station, frustration burning in their chest. Behind them, officers whispered in disbelief. But as they reached their car, Michael stopped suddenly. There in the distance, sitting perfectly still, was the German shepherd, watching them. Waiting. The police might not believe him, but the dog did. The forest felt different that evening, heavier, quieter, as though the trees themselves were listening. Sarah and Michael followed the German shepherd down the familiar path, their footsteps hesitant but determined. The dog moved quickly, more focused than ever, glancing back only to ensure they stayed close. Tonight, he wasn't stopping early. Tonight, he had something to show them. The air grew colder as they approached the area where the footprint had been. The dog paused only briefly before pushing farther into the woods, just a few feet more than usual, but enough to make Sarah's heart hammer against her ribs. "Michael, he's going deeper," she whispered. "I see it," he said, gripping her hand. Suddenly, the dog halted. His entire body stiffened, tail raised, ears locked forward. He sniffed the ground intensely, circling a patch of dirt and leaves. Then, with a sharp bark, he began to dig. Fast, desperate, as if time mattered. Sarah rushed forward. "What is it? What's he found?" The dog dug until his nails scraped against something solid. Then he stopped, stepped aside, and whined a soft, heartbreaking sound. Michael knelt and brushed away the loose dirt. His breath caught. There, half buried beneath leaves, mud, and broken twigs, was a small shoe. A small, worn, dirt-covered shoe. Ethan's shoe. Sarah's scream shattered the quiet. She collapsed beside it, hands shaking violently as she lifted the tiny sneaker, tears spilling down her cheeks. "This is his. It's really his." "Michael." Michael swallowed hard, unable to speak. His vision blurred as he stared at the shoe, the same one Ethan insisted on wearing every day. Even when it rained. The dog nudged Sarah's shoulder softly, then nudged the shoe as if to say, "Keep going. There's more." The moment shattered any lingering doubt. Ethan had been here, and the German shepherd wasn't guessing, he was following Ethan's trail. But as Sarah clutched the shoe to her chest, the dog suddenly growled deep, low, protective. Michael turned sharply. Something in the woods had moved, and whatever it was, the dog didn't like it. The growl from the German shepherd vibrated through the trees like a warning bell. Michael instinctively stepped in front of Sarah, who clutched Ethan's small shoe against her chest. The dog's fur stood on end, his body angled protectively as he stared into the deeper darkness of the woods, watching, listening, waiting. But after a long, tense moment, whatever had moved went still. The dog's growl faded, replaced by a restless whine. He stood beside the partially dug-up patch of earth for a few seconds, then turned abruptly, trotting toward a dense row of bushes that looked untouched for years. "What is he doing now?" Sarah whispered. Michael didn't answer. He followed. The shepherd pushed his nose hard against the shrubbery, then backed up and barked sharply once, twice before forcing his body through a narrow, nearly invisible gap between the thorn-covered branches. Michael's eyes widened. "I've walked this forest my whole life. I've never seen an opening here." Sarah approached slowly, wiping her tears. "It's hidden, like someone didn't want it to be found." Pushing aside branches, they peered in. Beyond the tight opening was a thin, winding strip of earth, unnaturally clear of leaves and debris, as if something, or someone, had been walking through it repeatedly. The farther the narrow trail stretched, the darker and more unnatural the forest became. The dog barked again from inside, urging them forward. Sarah's breath hitched. "Michael, look at the ground." He knelt, running his fingers over the dirt. Faint prints, small ones, zigzagged along the hidden path. Some fresh, some older. Ethan's footprints. Michael's voice shook. "He came this way. More than once." Sarah pressed a hand to her mouth, tears flowing again. The German shepherd suddenly circled back and nudged Sarah's leg, his eyes locked with hers. His message was unmistakable. "This is the way. This is where he went. Follow me." But as they took a step deeper down the hidden path, a chilling realization struck both parents at the same time. This trail wasn't natural, thought it wasn't random. Someone had made sure it stayed hidden, and Ethan had walked right into it. The hidden path narrowed as the three of them pressed deeper into the woods. Branches brushed against their arms, the ground dipped unevenly beneath their feet, and the air grew colder, unnaturally cold, as if sunlight never touched this place. The German shepherd slowed his pace now, moving with careful precision, his body low, ears standing razor-straight. Michael felt a chill crawl up his spine. "He's sensing something," he murmured. Sarah clutched Ethan's shoe tighter, her breathing sharp and uneven. "Is it danger?" As if answering her, the dog suddenly stopped. His tail stiffened. His eyes locked on a darker patch of forest ahead. Then, with a deep rumble building in his chest, he let out a low, threatening growl, the kind of sound that came from instinct, not fear. Michael froze. "He's warning us. Or warning something else." The growl deepened. Sarah scanned the trees, heart hammering. "Michael, what if someone else is here?" Before he could respond, a branch snapped somewhere in the distance. Sharp, clear, deliberate. The dog exploded into a defensive stance, shoulders squared, legs apart, teeth bared. He positioned himself directly between the parents and the darkness ahead, pushing Sarah back with his body, urging her to stay behind him. "Easy, boy." "Easy," Michael whispered, though his own voice trembled. Another sound. This time lighter, like footsteps retreating, fading deeper into the forest. The dog barked once, loud and warning. He didn't chase. He didn't advance. He simply held his ground, trembling with tension, watching until the noise disappeared completely. Sarah grabbed Michael's hand. "Something was following us." Michael nodded slowly, dread settling in his stomach. But the German shepherd didn't relax. His eyes stayed fixed. Ahead, his body remained rigid, whatever was out there. He knew it wasn't gone, and it wasn't done watching them. The deeper they moved along the hidden path, the more the forest seemed to close in around them. The air hung thick, heavy with damp earth and the scent of pine. The German shepherd kept his body angled protectively in front of them, every step measured, every sound analyzed. But gradually, his posture shifted, less aggressive, more focused, like he was zeroing in on something very specific. A few minutes later, he suddenly veered sharply to the right. "Where's he going?" Sarah whispered, wiping tears from her cheeks. Michael followed the dog's movement with his eyes. "He's tracking something." The dog pushed through a cluster of overgrown branches, disappearing for a brief moment. Sarah panicked. "No, don't lose him." They hurried forward, forcing their way through the tangled brush until the forest opened into a small, hidden clearing. Sarah gasped. There, tucked beneath a natural canopy of fallen tree limbs and large leaves, stood a small makeshift shelter. It was crudely built, branches woven together, leaves layered for coverage, dirt smoothed out inside like someone had been lying there. Michael's breath hitched. Someone lived here. The dog stepped inside the shelter, sniffing intensely. Then he lifted his head and barked, short, sharp, urgent. Sarah's hands trembled as she knelt beside the shelter. Her eyes widened. A backpack. Ethan's backpack. Half covered in dirt, one strap torn, but unmistakable. The bright little star sticker she had placed on it still clung to the front pocket. "Oh my God," she whispered, her voice cracking as she pulled it into her arms. "This is his. This is really his." Michael's eyes filled with tears as he knelt beside her, running a shaking hand over the familiar fabric. "He was here, Sarah. He stayed here." The dog sat beside them, ears perked, watching their reaction with deep, soulful eyes, as if confirming he had done his job. But then his head snapped up. Distant sound echoed through the trees, faint, muffled, but real. The dog growled low. Sarah felt her heart stop. Was someone else still using this shelter? Or worse, had Ethan not been alone out here? Sarah held Ethan's backpack tightly against her chest, as if the fabric alone could anchor her to her son. Michael ran trembling fingers across the worn zipper, his breath shaky, his mind racing with questions. The German shepherd paced around the shelter, nose low, sniffing every corner as if piecing together a story only he could. Smelled out, then he stopped, his head lifted, his ears perked sharply. He walked to the far side of the shelter and nudged aside a broken branch with his paw. Michael leaned in and froze, a smear of dried mud and tiny fingerprints. "Ethan was here," Michael whispered, his voice cracking. "He touched this recently." Sarah's tears fell harder. The air thickened with grief, fear, and the faintest spark of hope. But the dog wasn't done. He moved a few feet away and sniffed the ground intensely, then began to whine low, sad, almost apologetic. He pawed at a spot in the dirt until a faint trail became visible, a messy pattern of disturbed leaves and small footprints. Sarah's eyes widened. He walked somewhere else? Why would he leave the shelter? The dog nudged the ground again. Michael swallowed hard. He didn't leave on purpose. A realization struck them like ice water. The night Ethan disappeared, it had been stormy. Heavy rain. Loud thunder. Michael's voice trembled. He must have been trying to help something. Or someone. Sarah frowned. But what? He didn't know his way around these woods. The shepherd stepped forward and barked sharp, urgent, then limped slightly on one back leg before standing tall again. Sarah gasped. "He's showing us. He was injured that night." Michael's eyes widened. Ethan followed the injured dog. The puzzle snapped into place. Ethan had seen the German shepherd. Hurt. He followed him. Into the woods. Past the yard, into the hidden path. To help him, but then something scared Ethan away. Something forced him deeper. Something worse than the storm. Sarah covered her mouth. And the dog. He came back for us. He's been coming every night. Because Ethan couldn't. Michael stared into the darkness beyond the shelter. If Ethan tried to help him, then someone or something stopped him from coming home. The dog growled softly, confirming their fear. Ethan wasn't lost. He'd been driven deeper into the woods, and the shepherd was the only one brave enough to bring his parents back to him. The forest felt colder now, as if every tree held a secret Ethan couldn't tell them himself. Sarah wiped her eyes and pushed herself up from the ground, clutching Ethan's backpack tightly. Michael stood beside her, jaw clenched, his mind torn between terror and urgency. The German shepherd didn't wait. He stepped away from the shelter, nose to the earth, moving with a precision that was almost unnatural, like he wasn't just tracking a scent, but following a memory. He paused only long enough to make sure they were behind him before trotting down a slope covered in thick roots and damp soil. "Where is he taking us now?" Sarah whispered. "Somewhere important," Michael answered, voice tight. A few minutes into the walk, the dog stopped abruptly. He inhaled deeply, ears snapping forward. Then he looked up at Michael and Sarah with eyes wide, desperate, determined, and barked sharply. Not just any bark, the bark he used when he found something. Michael froze. "This is it. This is the spot." Sarah's fingers shook as she pulled out her phone. "We're calling the police again. They have to come. They have to." This time, her voice wasn't pleading. It was commanding. Detective Harris answered, impatience in his tone until Michael cut him off. "Either come now or we go in without you. Our son was here. We have proof." Silence. Then for the first time, Harris's voice softened. "Send me your coordinates. Patrol's on the way." As Sarah dropped the phone back into her pocket, the German shepherd moved again, slow, cautious, toward a darker patch of forest that sloped downward. Where the earth looked disturbed, he barked once more, staring into the shadows, and suddenly, faintly, very faintly, Michael heard something, a cry, A child's cry. Ethan. The moment the faint cry reached them, Sarah's knees almost gave out. Michael grabbed her hand, his heart slamming against his ribs. The German shepherd's ears shot up, every muscle in his body tightened like a coiled spring. He let out a sharp, urgent bark, then bolted toward the sound. "Ethan!" Sarah cried, sprinting after the dog. The darkness ahead deepened as the forest dipped into a shadowy ravine. Roots jutted out like claws, the ground damp and uneven. The dog raced ahead but slowed near a cluster of broken branches, piled unnaturally against a small hill. Too neat. Too intentional. Michael squinted. "That's not natural." The shepherd shoved his nose under the branches and barked furiously. "Help me move this," Michael shouted, dropping to his knees. Together, they pulled away the layered debris until something metallic glinted underneath. Sarah gasped. A drainage tunnel. Old, rusted, half collapsed around the edges, and from inside, the cry again. Clearer, weaker. Double Keither. Sarah screamed, falling to the opening. The dog didn't hesitate. He squeezed himself through the narrow gap, disappearing into the darkness with a low growl echoing behind him. Michael grabbed his phone light and crawled after him, Sarah right behind. The tunnel smelled of damp earth and rust. Water dripped steadily, echoing through the cramped space. Their breaths bounced back at them in quick, panicked bursts. "Ethan!" Michael called again. A soft, trembling voice responded. "Dad?" Sarah sobbed. "Baby, we're here. Keep talking to us." The German shepherd barked deeper inside, then whimpered, urging them to hurry. They crawled faster until the narrow tunnel widened slightly. Michael shined the light ahead and Sarah screamed. There, curled in the corner, shivering, clothes torn, face streaked with dirt, sat Ethan. His tiny hands were wrapped around his knees, eyes wide with exhaustion and terror. But the moment he saw them, he broke into tears. "Mom, Dad!" Sarah pulled him into her arms, sobbing uncontrollably. Michael wrapped both of them tightly, his own tears falling into Ethan's hair. The shepherd sat beside the boy, tail thumping weakly, his eyes soft but watchful, as if he had been guarding Ethan the entire time. Michael looked around the tunnel. "How did you end up here, buddy? What happened?" Ethan pointed shakily down the passage. I followed the hurt dog. But I slipped. Someone came. Someone was walking in the woods." Michael's blood ran cold. Someone had been out there. Watching. Following. But before he could press further, flashing lights appeared at the tunnel entrance. Police arriving. Detective Harris's voice echoed inside. "We've got them. They found the boy." Sarah held Ethan tighter, relief washing over all three of them. But the German shepherd, he stood guard, because he knew the danger wasn't fully gone yet. The paramedics rushed toward the tunnel as soon as Ethan was carried out, wrapping him in blankets and checking his vitals. Sarah held his hand tightly, afraid that if she let go even for a second, he might disappear again. Michael stayed at his side, one hand on Ethan's shoulder, the other trembling uncontrollably. The German shepherd stayed only a few feet away, watchful, alert, his tail lowered, but his eyes softening every time Ethan looked at him. Detective Harris approached slowly, breathing hard from the climb down the ravine. He stared at Ethan in disbelief, then at the dog. I can't believe this," he murmured. "We searched this entire forest." Michael's jaw clenched. "Not like he did." Harris nodded, humbled, unable to argue. Sarah leaned closer to Ethan. "Sweetheart, why didn't you come home? What happened that night?" Ethan swallowed, his small voice shaky. I saw him." He pointed to the German shepherd. "He was hurt, limping. I followed him 'cause he needed help." Sarah covered her mouth. Ethan continued, tears slipping down his cheeks. "But someone else was out there. I heard footsteps. They scared me. I ran, but I slipped down the hill, into the tunnel." Michael's eyes widened. Did someone chase you? Ethan shook his head. I didn't see them, but they were close. Detective Harris stiffened. We'll sweep the whole area. Whoever was out there, we'll find out. But Ethan wasn't done. He turned to the shepherd, voice cracking. He didn't leave me. He stayed near the tunnel every night. He barked at me, kept me awake so I wouldn't fall asleep in the cold. Sarah's tears flowed harder. Michael wiped his eyes. The dog lowered his head bashfully. As if embarrassed by the attention, Ethan reached out, his hand small, trembling. Grateful, the shepherd stepped forward and gently pressed his head into Ethan's palm. A moment so pure, so powerful, it silenced everyone around them. Sarah whispered. He didn't just find us. Michael nodded, voice breaking. He saved our son. The commotion slowly faded as Ethan was lifted onto a stretcher, paramedics surrounding him. Sarah and Michael held each other tightly, watching their son alive, breathing, safe, being prepared for the ambulance. The relief was overwhelming, but their eyes kept drifting to the German shepherd sitting quietly nearby, his fur ruffled, his gaze gentle yet alert. Detective Harris approached the dog cautiously, crouching down. I've never seen a stray act like this, he muttered. He tracked, protected, guarded. Like a trained canine. A nearby officer jogged over, holding a worn, dirt-covered collar. We found this by the shelter, he said. Looks like it belonged to the dog. Sarah took it carefully and turned it over. Her breath caught. On the rusted metal tag was a name. Shadow Search and Rescue K9. Michael exhaled sharply. He was a rescue dog. A retired one. Harris nodded solemnly. His handler passed away last year. Records say Shadow disappeared after the funeral. No one could ever find him. Sarah looked at the shepherd with new eyes full of awe, understanding, and gratitude. He never stopped helping people, even without a handler. Shadow slowly walked toward Ethan as the paramedics prepared to close the ambulance doors. Ethan reached out a small shaking hand. Can he come with us? The boy whispered. Michael looked at Harris. Harris looked at Shadow. And for the first time, the detective smiled. He's earned that. Sarah knelt and hugged the dog tightly. Your family now, she whispered into his fur. You saved our son. Shadow pressed his head into her chest, letting out a soft, relieved sigh. As the ambulance pulled away, lights reflecting off the trees, Sarah watched Shadow sitting proud beside them, a guardian who had never stopped searching, hero who had brought their family back together.